Happy Monday, everybody. It's time for another edition of Ask Mike. Courtney Mims alongside Mike Irwin here. And Mike, we're just going to jump right into it because we have so many questions this week and obviously about basketball. So let's get into our first question here. It's from 77 Hog, who says, so what does that close loss to Kentucky mean? We led most of the game. We didn't get blown out. They're a top 5 team, but we're still lost. I think we're done.
You know, I don't know. Obviously, the Missouri game Wednesday night is huge. I mean, you go on the road. Yeah, it's a road game, but they're like no conference wins. You've got one conference win. If you can't beat those guys, and here's the problem. I've been watching Missouri a lot, and they're pretty good. They're not what you would think with a team this far into the conference race without a conference win. They're not bad. They've lost a lot of games in the last couple of 3 minutes. I don't know what's happening to them then, but I'm telling you, those guys aren't bad. They are, to me, are better inside than Arkansas is. They're a more physical inside team. So that's going to be big. You lose that game, and I just think you've got huge problems. I don't see any way they still make the – I mean, did you see something there that would indicate they're going to completely turn around? What I saw was a team that played better defense, and we've seen the difference is when you play that kind of defense and you're playing a good team, you can play them close instead of getting blown out, but you still didn't win. And why didn't you win? Because you don't have offense. You don't have a point guard that can run an offense that will set people up to score. And you don't have shooters. They've got maybe one shooter, and when he's off, and that's Tremont Mark, and when he's off, you're in trouble anyway. So you got one guy that might go off and score 20, 25 points. If he does that in a game and you're playing good defense, you could win a game like Missouri. But you have to have that. You can't have him scoring 12 points. So there's just, and then most of those players are not good ball handlers offensively. You get in the half court and you have too many turnovers. So to me, it's a lot easier to improve and coach your defense better. The problems they've got on offense are much harder to solve, and I don't see them being solved. How do you make somebody a better shooter? I just don't think you do.
A lot of time in the gym, that's for sure.
So I still think this is probably not a postseason team because what do you have to do to make the NIT? How many games below 500 can you be and still make the NIT?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, you kind of have to look at the net rankings, which is what we've looked at. And so remember how we were talking about being in the top 100 of those net rankings can help you in both those cases?
Yeah, you really need to be in the 90s to make the NIT.
Exactly. And so Arkansas, I think, and I haven't looked at the net rankings as of Monday, but the last time I checked, they were still below 100.
Yeah, so they'd have to really improve, not saying they can't. Some of it is mental, but it's hard for me to imagine them getting that much better offensively. Congratulations for playing better defense, but you've still got offensive issues that will keep you from winning most of the games that you still have to play.
Yeah, and there is the question of, and I think 77 Hog even brought it up, we led for most of the game, we didn't get blown out, but even in these losses, you can pick out things, okay, this was good, this was a highlight, but until you start getting those wins, all of this is moot, right? Yeah. You've got to win.
And I think it starts with finding a point guard, and he's still playing all these guys, and the fans are mad, a lot of them, because they always like Arkansas kids, and Blocker's an Arkansas kid, and he's very aggressive, he plays hard, and my view of him is that he's sometimes too aggressive. He attacks the basket, which is good. He goes to the glass, but he goes off the glass too hard. The ball typically comes hard off the backboard. Other teams down court with somebody, I think they have a scouting report on him. He does this. You rebound, toss it down, and you get a dunk or a layup on the other end. So I think Musselman has seen that. And he also fouls a lot when he plays defense. So, and then Minifield, I think he's just a defensive liability. I think that's the issue there. He doesn't match up defensively.
I think it's his size, and I'm not trying to hate on him.
Yeah.
I mean, he is very quick, but I said this before a couple weeks ago on the show. I'm worried about his size in the SEC, and can he handle that? And we've seen he's a matchup. He's a
Right.
matchup difference for most of the guys when you get in the size and things
I
like
don't
that.
think he's necessarily wrong. And when he says we are done, I think he's talking about this team's not going to make postseason play. They could surprise us. I hope they do, but it sort of looks like that.
Yeah, it definitely looks like that right now, and I don't have a lot of hope, just like 77 Hog. But hey, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Mousetown says former Hog Jalen Williams tweeted that Devo Davis is dealing with some issues that the fans don't know anything about. He also basically told us those fans criticizing Devo for quitting the team to get a life. What's the story behind this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both kind of reluctant to get into any specifics because when you're talking about something like this, you want to be correct.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just start. I've heard a dozen rumors about this, and I don't want to get into the rumors. I think this is about as good as you're going to get. This is a teammate that knows him well. They were friends, still are. And he's saying he's got some things that he's dealing with that you don't know anything about. So that could be any one of a number of things. You can speculate that it's been going on for a while, maybe even before this year. We know that he quit the team last year for a game?
Yeah, it was a game or two, I think it was a game.
When they were in Hawaii, right?
Yes, yeah. He
And
quit,
so there was a blow up with Musselman, and he was off, and then he was back. I've had some people tell me they think he will come back. He's not kicked off. He stepped away.
They just say in the press release, it does say that he wasn't kicked off, that he hasn't quit the team, that he isn't leaving the team. It says stepped away, which kind of sounds like.
And he's done that before, so maybe he's back. I think some fans are basically saying you're a quitter. You quit the team because the way they're looking at it, he's a leader and they need leadership and he's not providing it. But if there are issues he's dealing with that prevent that, I mean, sometimes you can have issues that athletics is not a good environment for you to be in.
Yeah.
And so whatever that is, maybe it will get corrected.
Absolutely. And something else to kind of be said about that, not only Jay Will, but I noticed that Trevin Brazil and Keon Manyfield posted on Instagram, and maybe more, I just saw those two posted on Instagram, stories of pictures of Devo.
Yeah,
and kind of cryptic messages, but kind of just showing their support. And so we do not know what is going on with Devo Davis, but people just need to back off a little bit because, hey, we don't know what he's dealing with. You or I do not know what he's dealing with. Rumors are swirling. His mom even came out and said, hey, just leave it alone, and just leave it. And so I think you kind of have to honor that, hey, if he comes back, awesome. If he doesn't, he did a lot of good for this Arkansas Razorbacks
and we know
program.
that as late last week, he was over working with a bunch of kids in the area. So he's doing that. He's doing all that stuff. There's something there, and so we'll just wait and see if he comes back.
I think it was Austin Allen who said this when we were doing a podcast together, and we brought up mental health issues, and we kind of talked about how athletics, some people can handle all of the extra mental stuff that athletics, being a college athlete, puts on you, but others cannot. And he saw so many guys that could not handle it. And so it can be tough. And so, hey, I hope Devo's okay, and that if he is dealing with some stuff, that he's getting what he needs right now. So, Jimmy Rowdy says, a guy on Facebook is saying that Musselman is looking into the Louisville job. Okay, the guy is not one of my Facebook friends, so I don't know how solid this is. Know anything about it?
I did see that particular guy. I can't remember his name, or I would have put it up, but he did say that. He was just saying he'd heard that. And so coincidentally, I'd heard that earlier last week. I discussed it with you and some other people in there. I didn't hear it from a Facebook guy. I heard it from somebody that's a pretty good source. So I started looking into it, and I was told absolutely by people I trust, no, Louisville is not an issue. But what I was told, and there's almost a consensus about this among people that claim to know Musselman and his thinking, they all believe if he leaves here, there's two jobs that he would look at. One of them is Arizona State, and the other is UCLA.
Okay.
That would get him back closer to where his mom lives,
Yeah.
and he likes the Southern California area. So if those two jobs, and I've had people say, well, the UCLA job's definitely not opening up this year. Arizona State maybe, but probably not. But if you're looking long term, I mean, I've never really thought he was here for 10 years.
No,
His history doesn't suggest that. So another year, another 2 years, whatever, maybe. I can't say for sure. He might be here at the end of his career. I don't know. But I don't think there's anything to the Louisville rumor.
No, I don't think so either. And I think you're right. We've always heard the buzz that if he would leave, it would be for like a California job or somewhere close to Southern California. So I think you're absolutely right there, Mike. J. Fred 59 wants to know, what does Muss have against Fall? Has the media asked him? Surely he could help this team.
I think both of us, when we discussed this, felt like he wasn't for a 4-star, almost 5-star guy who played in the McDonald's All-American game. He didn't look like he was as far developed as you would typically find a guy like that. I mean, we've talked about Blocker, and he was close to a 5-star. And
he should have been a McDonald's All-American.
Yeah, but even he's got some development that he needs to do. It just looks like to me Bay Fall is farther behind. Now, he's played in 7 of the 20 games.
Okay.
He scored 6 points. He's shooting 50% from the field, but you know why? Because he's put up 2 shots and hit 1 of them. That's around the basket. So he doesn't take a lot of shots. And then he's, I don't know what he's like from the free throw line, but I think he's shooting around 30% from the free throw line. The point is, if you expanded his role out to about 20 minutes instead of 5 minutes, what you would end up with is a guy that scores about 4 points a game, with maybe 5 rebounds, and would almost foul out if he played 20 minutes, because he's averaging around 4 fouls per that period, would be about right at 4 fouls for 20 minutes. So he fouls a lot. He's a pretty good rebounder, and you would think he would be at 6'10", 6'11", like that, but he's not a scorer right now. And again, this is one of those things where you think Musselman's looking at him and just going, I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to coach this guy. I mean, he just looks like, to me, a classic example of somebody that was overrated.
Yeah.
He's got potential, and I think they will continue to work with him. I don't see him leaving here, but I think they will continue to try and develop him, especially in the off season, and get him. He may be one of these guys that doesn't fully develop until his 2nd or 3rd, 4th year here. There's nothing wrong with that. We've gotten used to this thing with the portal where somebody's supposed to immediately come in and make an impact, or get them out of here and let's get a portal guy and replace him with a portal guy. At some point, you still have to develop guys that come in as a freshman and get better all along. And if you can do that with somebody that has potential, you can't coach 6'11" like that. So, 6'10", 6'11", you can't coach that. So if he continues to develop, becomes a scorer, becomes an even more aggressive rebounder, doesn't foul as much, is a shot blocker, then what's wrong with playing him some next year, then even more his junior year? Or this could even be a red shirt. You don't generally redshirt basketball players, but you don't know what his attitude about any of this is. If he has a good relationship with Musselman and is willing to stay and work and likes it here, you might see something like that. Doesn't mean he has to play right now. And anybody out there right now that thinks that that's why this team is not winning and therefore they need to play him more, they aren't watching when he's in the game, because he's having very little impact, just rebounding mostly.
Yeah, do you remember what I kind of talked to you about over summer, where we were kind of talking about this team, and I had heard from someone close to the program that while Bay Fall is a very talented guy, he needs a lot of development. And I think that still holds true. We're kind of seeing that. We weren't in practices. We didn't get to see what he was doing, but that kind of holds true to me now that, hey, that person who told me that information was definitely very correct there, because he needs that development still. He is still a freshman. We didn't see him do much in the McDonald's All-American game, so maybe there was some indication there that maybe, hey, he needs a little bit more development. And who knows, he could turn into a really awesome, incredible basketball player.
If you give him time.
If you give him time, exactly. And that is the one thing, time. Marty Bird's Proxy asks, will we reach a point where Muss plays only a handful of guys who will be asked back next year, sort of like MLB teams do in September when they're out of contention? Or will there be a handful back?
I don't know what a handful means. First of all, there's no indication from Musselman that he's going to start playing only guys that he thinks will be back, because what he has said, he's going to continue to try and find the right combination. Now, if he's going to do what is suggested here, that at some point he just says, heck with it, I'm going to start giving more playing time to the guys that'll be back, then I think that would have to happen within a couple of weeks because they've only got a month left anyway. So you might go 2 more weeks trying to do what you're doing, and then if you get to that point 2 weeks into February, maybe he would do this. I don't know. So who do we think's coming back? Well, I could see Tremont Mark coming back unless he doesn't want to. He's eligible to come back unless he wants out of here and wants to transfer somewhere else. I could see him coming back. I could see Bay Fall coming back. I could see Blocker coming back unless Blocker's upset and thinks he should have been played more. So those are 3 guys. Muss has signed 2 4-stars. These aren't like the 5-stars that he had 2 years ago. These are guys in the, I don't know, rated 20th best shooting guard in the country, 30th best shooting forward or scoring forward in the country. A couple of guys like that. Again, along the lines of what we're talking, you might bring them in, they might play some, but you're bringing them in to try and develop them into better players when they're sophomores, juniors, and even if they last into 4 years. So he's got those 2. And then, so if you look logically at what he's done in the past, what he's going to do is reload with about 6 new guys. And I would expect him to go out and try to get a couple of bigs.
Yeah.
I'm talking about guys that weigh 230.
No, he needs a true center.
That can do, I don't know about back to the basket center, but certainly a power forward that's in the 6'10", 6'11" range, in the 230 range that can defend the basket and can get layups and block shots. And that's where I think, you know, what that would be his #1 priority. And then a point guard. He's got to find hopefully 2 of them, but one really good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Cowhog 32 wants to know, why in the world did Game Day choose to come here this year? They already knew we were struggling before they scheduled it. It's not normally at ESPN. I'm not normally an ESPN hates this guy, but I'm really wondering what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, I mean, what he's suggesting is that ESPN was trying to embarrass Arkansas by having Game Day here and then they get blown out. I don't think that's the case. I'm thinking what they were thinking was, okay, we've got this Musselman team that's always turned things around when it's gotten bad, and this is a real critical point. So maybe you got Kentucky coming in here, all this stuff that's happened in the past with Arkansas and Kentucky and Bud Walton. Maybe you'd have this big cool upset and it'd be emotional and people going bonkers and all that. And if they were hoping for that, they didn't get that, and the atmosphere wasn't just over the top, but it was better than it has been. I think it was a nice crowd. They were enthusiastic, and Arkansas led most of the game. It could have been really embarrassing for Arkansas. That was my whole thing when this was announced. What if they come in here and Kentucky blows them out by 30, like what happened with Auburn? That would be embarrassing with all that hype that they would do all day long, and then you get, and it's that way. It didn't happen like that. And to their credit, the ESPN people said some nice things when it was over. You know, if even you know, even Calipari got on afterward and said some things about, I'm glad we didn't play him. He still thinks he could see them turning it around, and he doesn't want to have to play them when they turn it around. So they all said some nice things, so it wasn't bad. But I don't think it fooled any Razorback fans either. I don't think they're sitting here now going, yeah, we've turned this corner on this thing. I think they think it's better, but it's still not going to be good.
Yeah, and when they discussed that, when they did the ESPN Game Day like media availability, they said in their, because it was asked like, why are y'all coming here? and I think it was Andrea Carter who answered it, but she had said like, it's the atmosphere. Like Fayetteville, we have not been to Fayetteville, but we absolutely should have been to Fayetteville because the atmosphere. Well, but they picked the
wrong year for atmosphere.
Well, they did, but who can blame them? They're trying.
They should have been there for the Auburn game 2 years ago. That would have been atmosphere.
Absolutely. They're just catching up for lost time.
Oh, they could have been there for the Duke game.
They could have been there for the Duke game.
That was
absolutely.
Atmosphere.
That was atmosphere. And
but here's the thing about ESPN. I'm just going to say this flat out. I think they're going to go broke. I do. I think within a few years that they've really overcommitted themselves on what they're paying to SEC football and basketball. They're coming up with numbers that they're giving, and now they're scrambling trying to figure out a way to get better games and bigger audiences and all that. I think they made some bad decisions, but their biggest problem is they do something that I think is absolutely foolish, which is they combine politics with sports. Their ESPN people are always pushing political issues. To me, when I talk to the average sports fan, that's the one place where you can get away from politics. They don't want all this stuff. People want to get away from it. You get into something that's completely different from politics. And so when you bring it on into there, it's like, I can't get away from this. They won't leave me alone. And I don't see the other sports outlets doing much of that.
Oh, there's a lot that do that.
I don't see them doing as much as ESPN does it.
I don't know. I mean, I've seen CBS Sports do it. I've seen NBC Sports do it.
Well, wherever doing it, I don't like it. I think it's dumb. There's just no reason for it.
Yeah.
I mean, leave it alone. Leave that at the door. I mean, just talk about sports. Sports doesn't have to be political.
True.
So I just think they are in trouble.
Okay.
And
well,
what I think will
else
happen
might be in trouble
is
too.
somebody with money will buy ESPN and turn it around.
Okay.
There's a need for it. They just don't run it well themselves.
Yeah, I think it's because so many other outlets do it. I mean, the only one I've never seen really touch into all of that stuff is like Barstool Sports. I mean, they just talk about whatever,
Yeah.
and maybe they do touch on politics sometimes, but mostly it's about
It's just
sports
about,
and just having fun.
Hurling
so.
insults back and
Hurling
forth among
insults
fans
back
and stuff like that. That's fun stuff.
It is good stuff. Hogman80 says the ladies need to get some more respect. 16-6 and 4-3 in SEC play. And the 4 SEC wins have been without Talia. Multiple wins have been without some of their better players also. Coach Neighbors has done a great job.
Well, I don't think they don't get respect, and they certainly get the coverage. We had a complaint last week that the gymnastics didn't get enough coverage, and we give them all kinds of coverage. It's not just us. I think all the media does that. And I think the women's basketball team gets respect when they win, and they've been winning lately. They were struggling earlier in the year, and to me, they had fallen back into that same old trap. They were just a bunch of three-point shooters and weren't playing good defense, but they've since transitioned. I see them doing all kinds of things right now. And maybe it was triggered, when Scott went out. I don't know, that maybe Mike Neighbors felt like he had to make some changes. But we've seen them, like against Kentucky, they became a transition team. We saw the quickness, and they used their quickness to attack the basket. In other words, you don't have to shoot three-pointers if you're taking the ball down the floor and beating the other team to the rim and going and making layups. So they did that. But I've also seen, and I continue to say this, that Miriam Dowda is a difference maker on this team, and she continues to get better and better, and it's all about her confidence level. I still don't think she realizes how good she is. I think she can be a dominant player in all of women's basketball, not just some games and in the SEC. I think next year maybe you might see her a real force. Now, let's talk about Poffenberger because because you and I've walked around here saying, what is wrong with her? She thinks she's a three-point shooter, and she's not because she's missing all these shots. But the story has always been, and we're not there, but in practice she hits these shots. I've got a theory.
Okay.
I've got a theory
Let's
that
hear it.
Gino was mean to her, broke her confidence down, and that's a very bad thing to do with somebody that's talented. And she got here kind of smarting from that. I've been rejected by those people, so I left. And I'm out to prove myself again. But that gets in your head. And maybe that's why she gets in a game and is uptight and can't hit three-point shots. But she hit a bunch of them in this game. All 20 points she scored were from three, right?
She was 8 of 11 from behind the arc. 8 of 11.
So 24 points, all 24 points came from the three-point line. If she can do that consistently, now what I would like to see her do is be better scoring around the basket because she misses a lot of layups. But if you can take those two girls, one of which is a very physical rebounder, which Poffenbarger is, and then you can get Dowda, which is just an all-around outstanding inside player, and you've got both of them in there, that's a formidable team. They can match up with an LSU or a South Carolina.
Yeah, well, you saw Miriam Dowda in the beginning of that Missouri game. She got a couple of quick blocks, and that really got them going, where it was like, okay, we're opening up the floor a little bit. And so it was the combo. Obviously, Saylor deserves a lot of love for her performance, but you got to give some love for Miriam Dowda making plays. And like you said, Mike, when she's confident, and we've just seen it grow and grow and grow in each game, when she's confident, she can be a super
And I like the
incredible
fact that, and you know, you've heard me grumble about this. I don't like watching teams that just shoot threes out the wazoo.
Yeah.
It's boring basketball to me. It's lazy basketball. And they were just doing too much of it, and I was back mad at them again. But now I'm not mad at them.
But now you're not mad at them anymore.
I like the way they're playing right now.
Well, they definitely need to get a couple more wins. They can get some wins this week as well, and they look really good. I think they're going to make the tournament this year.
I do too. And they might even win a game or two if they keep playing like this.
Yes, exactly. And getting Talia Scott back will only help them.
Except, let's talk about that for a minute, because they're winning all these games where they're gone. What happens when she comes back? Does that
mess with the dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, how are you going to handle that?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe we'll
have to wait.
We'll have to wait and see. If she starts messing with the good juju on the team, neighbors might be like, okay, we gotta sit to Leah a little bit. WV Hog fan asks, based on preseason expectations, which coach, Pittman or Musselman, do you think was more surprised, disappointed, and frustrated with how their teams performed against SEC opponents?
Well, I think they were both surprised, but come on, there's not anything close about this, because Musselman's team started right outside the top 10.
Yeah.
And
Arkansas football wasn't ranked.
Football was not. You know, the question there was whether they were going to win 6 games, 7 games, or 8 games maybe, and then they won 4, and so that's a disappointment. I said this last week, I'll say it again. I got a pretty good memory. And I do not remember an Arkansas team in any sport that was ranked as high as this basketball team was, that more than halfway through the season is sitting where they are, because they're not looking at postseason. And we were talking top 10, maybe Final Four. That is a huge disappointment, a huge downer, and I got to think that Musselman will be scratching his head over this bunch for a long time, even after they're gone.
Oh yeah, I think a lot.
Every coach has that one team in their career where they go, "What was going on with that bunch of guys?"
And I think this is that team for him, because I don't know a team that was like that either. I mean, we'll have to like Hog Stats may know, right?
Yeah.
We need to ask Hog Stats.
I mean, come on. I mean, we've had some teams of the 78 football team, they were ranked #1 by Sports Illustrated and made the cover of Sports Illustrated, and they ended up winning 9 games. They were probably just outside the top 10, so it wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
It just didn't fulfill the lofty expectations. But I just don't know of an Arkansas team was like, hey, you're top 2 or 3, or no, you're top 10, close to top 10, and now you're not going to make not the NCAA tournament, but you may not even make the NIT.
I mean, it's a true.
That's the disappointment, no question. The basketball season is a bigger mystery than the football season.
Absolutely. It's a true fall from grace almost, is a weird way to put it. But Hog in Iowa says, in all the football recruiting pictures, when showing the prospect wearing the Arkansas uniform, they are all wearing darkened visors that cover their face. Is there a rule that say the face can't be shown?
Well, it's not just the rule that the face can't be shown. There is a rule, and there's always been a rule, that a school cannot give out the names of the players it's recruiting. You can't mention their name. If you're the school, on your website or anything you put out, you can't mention a name of a player. You can't show a player in a photo or a video being on your campus. You can't do any of that. But the NCAA has relaxed this part of the rule, which it didn't used to be this way. If you're the player and you go and they take pictures of you, you can put those pictures on your website, because we see it all the time.
They put them on their social
media.
media.
So you don't have to have the visor. You can just be in the visor when you're in the U of A shot, but then you can take it off and get a photo and put it on your own website and mention that you were at the, at the school. I mean, we just had one of the guys on TV yesterday, right? Otis,
and he took photos and everything.
Yeah, and he was on TV talking about his visit and all that. So that's the difference. There used to be the recruits couldn't talk about it either.
Wow.
But now they've gotten a little more brains about this, the NCAA. I understand why they don't want the schools doing it. It supposedly puts pressure on it. I think it's kind of silly, to be honest, because everybody should know who you're recruiting. But
it is kind of silly, but isn't it also so they can use those photos and anything? If the visor's blacked out, you can't tell who it is, so they can use it in their stuff as well. Hog Redneck says, with what happened to our football and basketball teams, I'm nervous about baseball. Whew, I know, Hog Redneck. Our pitching is supposed to be outstanding, but in the first scrimmages, they gave up home run after home run. Explain why I'm overreacting.
Well, for instance, you had 5 runs home runs hit in this Sunday scrimmage between the two teams, 5 home runs. But there were only 6 runs scored off those 5-run homers. Just one of them was a 2-run homer. The rest of them were solo home runs. And if you went back and looked at what happened, most of the time when a pitcher gave up a home run, he got out of the inning without any more damage.
You saw that. We saw that in the highlights.
So truthfully, a solo home run is no more damaging than an RBI single. Guy gets to second base and somebody drives him in. Okay, you scored 1 run off of a single of a guy at second. There's no more real damage than that. So there was that. I don't think giving up, and there were 2 other runs, just 2 other runs scored other than those 6 runs that were scored, or 6 runs scored off the 5 home runs. There were just 2 other runs scored among both teams total. So the pitching was good. I mean, they had, I think I had strikeouts in here.
Really?
14 strikeouts, 4 walks, just 4 walks. So the numbers were all good. To me, it was an example of you had good pitching. You just have some power hitting on this team, and those guys, you want those guys to be able to hit with power.
No, absolutely.
And when you hit a home run off somebody that's good, it means something. It tells Dave Van Horn, I mean, this guy can face good pitching in the SEC and still
like Hagen
hit.
Smith going up against Kendall Diggs, right?
Exactly.
In the first scrimmage. So I thought
he gave up a home run.
Yeah.
And he's their Friday night ace, but that's the only one he did.
Exactly.
So that's not necessarily a bad thing for sure.
And both, it's so funny when they go against each other in inter squad scrimmages, you know, it's so competitive too. These guys are trying to throw their best stuff. These guys are trying to hit it. It's really cool to see the level of competition among the team. I think it almost speaks volumes to how much talent there is on the team as well on both sides. So
yeah, I liked what I saw. I was out there. So.
I know I want to go out to one of those. They'll be having more. I think they have one even today. So we'll have to get out to one of those. Eddie Lynn says, I noticed in Sunday's Arkansas baseball scrimmage that 6 of the 8 runs scored by the 2 teams came off of home runs. Another question about that. Looks to me like they're still emphasizing all that launch angle stuff. The last few years, the inability to hit singles and doubles with men in scoring position have been a problem. I hope we're not about to go through that again.
You know, it's a good point, but when you looked at the numbers again, there were only 5 total runners left on base with both teams. That's not a terrible number, 5 guys left on base.
Okay.
It was only 6 innings, not 9 innings, but 5 is not. You didn't have consistent situations where people were in scoring position, especially, and they were just left there because somebody couldn't get a hit. So I didn't think that, you know, these aren't great numbers. There were 6 additional hits, not counting the 5 home runs. So they got 6 hits that weren't home runs and scored 2 runs off those 6 hits.
Okay.
So again, these aren't great numbers from a hitting standpoint, but it's not, it's so early. That was one scrimmage. There's no reason to panic right now and think, oh, this is going to be like those teams that get guys bases loaded with nobody out and then they all strike out, because that happened. For 2 years, Arkansas went through that. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Because he does have a valid point about Nate Thompson and his launch angle. He likes those home runs, and Dave Van Horn has explained that Nate Thompson has shown him the numbers, the analytics, and you're still better off trying to hit home runs.
I'd like to keep an eye on this too, because that's a really, really good point that Eddie Lynn makes. But the good news is there's more scrimmages. Like I said, we'll be able to watch them. And hey, all the scrimmages are open too. So if you want to go by Baum-Walker Stadium on a nice day, like Monday today is a beautiful day. So go by and check out the baseball team. OKC Hog wants to know, oh, and I love this question. I'm so glad somebody asked this question. What's up with all this crybaby stuff from the Texas basketball team? They got their feelings hurt by the upside-down Hook 'em Horns logo. Are they going to play that card in the SEC? If so, tell them to go back to the Big 12.
Okay, this started several days ago when Texas lost to Central Florida, and then apparently after the game, some of the Central Florida
in the line, they were doing it in the handshake line.
Yeah,
they were going up.
So then their Texas head coach Rodney Terry went off in the post-game locker room and started saying how terrible it was and unsportsmanlike and all that. He did, in all fairness, he did come back and apologize for that. He said, I shouldn't have said that. I'm not mad about it anymore. I should have just kept it to myself. But he still sort of left you with the impression. And you can have your own view of whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for players to be doing it in line. Now, the second incident occurred just the other day when they were playing BYU. And so this game's on TV, and you got all these BYU students behind the Texas bench, and they don't have the sign. They just have
on their chest, horns down, painted on their chest.
On their chest. And so they were asked to kind of remove that. That nobody seems to know. I have not seen an explanation whether Texas complained and they were asked to do it, or whether the BYU's people said, this is not good, we don't want you doing that. But I got to believe they wouldn't have let them in there looking like that if they thought it was bad. But so it sounds like to me they still, somebody complained.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the network being politically correct, I don't know. But so that happens. So this brings us up to the last point. His last point is, what happens when they come into the SEC starting in football this fall, and then obviously in baseball and basketball and all that next spring? And Alyssa Orange of our staff, our sports director, our boss. She's kind of mean sometimes. I think she's mean.
I think she's nice.
Okay.
Give her some credit.
No,
she's nice.
We're just kidding around. But she answered that. She didn't answer it because of this, but somebody else was asking the question. And she did some research on there, and she came up with what I think is an interesting, this was from the SEC office, and this is what their latest word on this is. The fans are okay. They're not going to try to enforce anything to do with the fans. If you're a fan, you're sitting in the stands, you want to hold up a sign, you want to stand up and do the...
You want to paint it on your chest?
Yeah,
you're
you
allowed
want to do the reverse hook 'em. They're not going to mess with the fans. It will be up to the referees or umpires' discussion or discretion if something happens during a game. For instance, in the example they gave was a player makes a big play in a football game, gets up, let's say he catches a great pass, gets up and does the reverse hook 'em horns right in the face of the guy that he's just beat on the pass.
So like taunting.
Yeah, you're taunting him.
Yeah.
So if they're using that to taunt somebody, it will be a penalty, just like any other taunting you would have.
Yeah.
If you caught a pass and then you went over to the sidelines and you and your buddies were over on the sidelines doing it, and you weren't doing it
like
around
a celebration, like to the fans,
and you're
or
not
whatever.
messing with the other, you're not doing it in front of some player's face, you're not taunting, then it's okay. So it will be up to the discretion. But it's still going to be interesting to see when this gets called. And it's going to be interesting because if you'll remember, Nick Saban didn't like it. He had 2 years ago, I think it was, that his guys won a game, I think, against Texas, and they were doing that, and he didn't like it.
No.
He came up and said he didn't want his guys doing that. So I'm assuming that unless you're stupid, if you're a head coach of an opposing team in any sport, when Texas comes into the SEC, you will tell your players, don't do that in a taunting manner. If you want to do it, wait till we come over to the sidelines or whatever, or we're around each other.
Yeah.
Just don't do it in the face of an opposing Texas player.
Yeah, I think that's a good rule. I think if Texas fans, though, are really upset over this, or coaches, they have a whole world of things coming to them in the SEC.
I do want to kind of shift gears a little bit on this, though, because there's this whole subject of is that unfair?
Well,
and is that an unfair thing to do?
The horns down?
Yeah, is that that was the implication. Hey, it's not fair to do this to us. And here's what I want to say about this, because to me it ties into what I'm seeing with NIL and transfer portal and all that. Because people are saying, what I keep reading is this: it's about time the players got a chance to make money because it's been unfair, that coaches have been making this money and players haven't. It's about time that players should be allowed to transfer because coaches could go from one to the other. It's not fair, and now it's fair. And it just, what reminded me of this was a guy, and I saw him on the internet, don't remember who he was, just one of these things I saw on the phone, but he was answering this question, and he said, sports by its very nature is unfair. It's not meant to be fair. There can be good rewards and all that, but by its very nature, it's an unfair thing. And it triggered a memory I had. I've talked about old Coach Vanoy and how we all hated him and he was mean to us and all this stuff. But I remember when it was all over, he kind of softened up toward the end of the year. And he sat down with us the last day when we were putting up all of our uniforms and stuff. And he told us, he said that. He said, the first day he said, you come through that door, you can turn around and leave if you don't like anything that happens in here. But this is my world and you will live it like I want you to live it. And if you don't, go away because you're not being held in here. Well, now what he was saying was, there was nothing unfair, nothing fair about any of this. When you come into this world of football, and I think it applies to all sports, there's nothing inherently fair about it. You can lose a player to injury and you lose a game, but it's not your fault. The player just got hurt. Referees can make a bad call. The Auburn game a few years ago that cost Arkansas the game, and it was unfair that the refs blew it. But what he was saying is there's nothing inherently fair about sports. You can come in and work your tail off and do nothing wrong and still lose. But he said, the value of this is that you learn to deal with what's unfair and you don't run away from it.
Life's not fair. Right?
And what it occurred to me was that there's only about 5 of us. When I go to these reunions in Lubbock, there's a bunch of my old high school football teammates. There's only about 5 of those guys that were on that 7th grade team. And we talked about it last summer. And what we all said was that we were gone away from high school and off on our own before we really started understanding what Coach Vanoy was talking about. He was talking about our entire experience from 7th grade all the way up through high school. All of our experience in athletics was teaching us that there's going to be things we don't like, but we don't have a choice. We just have to deal with it. And then when you get out on your own, that's how you deal with problems in life. What I'm worried about is that when we have this new thing where you can, oh yeah, man, I'm not making enough money here. I can go over here and make more money at this school. And, oh, wow, I'm getting paid. Well, I don't like that we lost this game, but I'm getting some money, so that's not bad. Or, hey, I came to this school, it's not what I wanted. I'm going over here to this other school, and they're going to pay me more anyway. You're creating or fostering a thing that gets completely away from what I think sports is about, which is this overall lesson of how to deal with life. You're not dealing with life when you're doing this stuff. You're saying, hey, it was unfair to me that I didn't make money and your coach made some, so now I'm getting money. And it was unfair that I couldn't transfer. Well, now I'm getting to transfer. But are these guys going to be left later on in life with this idea that I can run away from issues that I don't want to deal with? I don't know. But that is the main thing that I have a problem with NIL, unlimited amount of money that you can make. I have the right to make as much money as I want, and I have a right to transfer anytime I want. You're getting away from that notion that sports is not fair. The experience is teaching you how to deal with what's unfair.
Yeah.
And I think I'm afraid that's going to go away.
Well, you could make an argument that other things, sports, NIL, and what you're learning, I don't know the transfer portal, lessons from the transfer portal, but maybe that there are lessons within those things too, because there is some good to it as well. You know, there are people that have learned that they can go out and make some money, and they have a little bit of money that they may use off of their name, image, and likeness, and they may be able to use that money for good and all this stuff. There is some lessons that come out of it. Leighton Blocker is a great example, right? Where he has a website and he sells his stuff, but he'll do jersey drops and stuff like that, and all the money goes to charity and things like that. And so that's a good lesson in, like, hey, you've been given this opportunity and you've chosen to give back with it, right? That's a nice little life lesson too. There are good lessons in the bad. That's how I kind of see it. There are good lessons in it.
How do you explain Razorback fans sitting in the stands this fall and watching a team just quit in football? Just quit.
I don't like that lesson. That one is not a great one. I think that's the ugly
I think a lot
side
of those
it.
guys knew one way or the other they were going to be gone. Either the coaches would tell them, go transfer somewhere else where you like it better, or I'm going to get out of here because I don't like this.
Sure, yeah.
That's the part of it that bothers me. And some of it is that what the players are not being taught by being given this fairness, that all of a sudden all this fairness.
Well, and that's another thing, right? Nobody's guiding these young people through this kind of rocky road. Nobody's giving them and saying, hey, here you go. This is how we can do where you could bring in people like NIL advisors. You could bring people in to advise students on this rocky road, because I'm telling you, when they go into college, they're given all this money and all this stuff, and they don't know a lick of what to do with it. Why not be taught maybe financial independence and financial planning? And hey, if you're going to make money, let's show you how you can put it into a savings account and how you can do this. That would, to me, would be a good way to make a positive out of a negative.
That's the way Arkansas started off, but I'm not sure it works that way anymore. I think you can't. There's only so much you can do with these athletes. And I just think it's going to get worse. That's what I'm saying. Not just here, but everywhere. I think you're going to see teams lose games because players, know they have options and don't care anymore, and they can run away from whatever issues they have.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
And then for the fans, it's like I say, my friend Eddie Lynn, who's been a Razorback, who's been a Texas Tech basketball fan, he watched Gerald Myers when he was a player. You know how long ago that was? That was like when we were in elementary school. He remembers it back that far. And he was always a Texas Tech basketball fan. And they're having a great year. I mean, they're right up there at the top of the Big 12, and they're coming out of nowhere. And normally he'd be all mad because they're not getting enough publicity and all this stuff. And I'm calling him and going, hey, they beat OU at OU. Are you kidding me? Come on. And he's like, eh. He said, none of those guys are from around here. None of them were around last year. They just bought them and brought them in here, and they'll be gone after this year. He said, I don't care anymore. There's no reason to be loyal to any of these people.
Well, Eddie Lynn is, that's his opinion, that's for sure. We have one more question. It's from Razor Alex 88, who says,
this is yours.
Is this my question? Razor Alex, okay. I got to go with former Hogs Dre Greenlaw and Brandon Allen and the Niners to beat the KC Swifties in the Super Bowl. It seems that KC has become the team most people hate, just like New England was during their heyday. Go 49ers.
Yeah, I'm a Chiefs fan, and I watch, and I don't pay any attention to that, so it doesn't bother me, but you're a Swiftie. What are you going to do?
I don't mind. Actually, he was saying it in a really nice way. He was saying the KC, it's the Swifties. They're all behind Kansas City now.
Would it be better if she went somewhere and sat back further in the booth where they couldn't get
They're still going to find her.
Yeah.
She has tried that before. She tried that. She even was on camera this game. She noticed she was on TV. She was looking at the broadcast in the booth, and she noticed she was on TV, and she goes, leave me alone. Leave me alone. And I go, yeah, leave her alone, guys. Just let her enjoy watching her boyfriend play sports.
You know what the networks are doing? What they're looking at is we're getting new viewers.
Oh, do you know how much? So I looked this up because a lot of people were wondering. The NFL has raised its viewership this season by a whopping 52%. And their viewership is not just United States. They are getting like viewership from different countries on VPNs and stuff like that.
So what you're saying is more of these celebrities should get involved with football players, and then
sure, yeah, and then
if
they're a celebrity like Taylor
Swift, music
Swift
and all that stuff involved, and then their fans will then become NFL fans.
Well, there are musicians who are involved with players.
Is there any indication from you, since you pay attention to this and I don't, is there any indication from you that Swiftie.
Yes, Swiftie. Yes, Taylor Swift.
No, Taylor herself knows a lot about football, or she just kind of dinging around there and her boyfriend is playing football.
So she grew up a Philadelphia Eagles fan, which is the whole funny story about this entire thing, is that her family.
So she knows about football.
She does, yeah. She grew up a Philly fan and all of that. And it's funny because Travis Kelce's brother, Jason, played for the Eagles, so plays for the Eagles if he isn't retired yet or whatever's going on with that. But it's kind of just funny that she grew up an Eagles fan. Now she's dating a Kansas City Chief. And so, yeah, there is some indication that she knows football.
Yeah, she's not clueless over there going,
No.
somebody tells her to jump up. That's good. Jump up and down. Travis did something good.
No, she knows what's going on for sure. But, yeah, I just think.
And now we were told that she can't be at the Super Bowl because
no, she can be at the Super Bowl.
But now
she
can be there.
Well, I thought she couldn't be there. This was a whole hypothetical a month ago, Mike, where I told you she has a concert in Tokyo Saturday night, February 10th. And so Tokyo, with the time difference and all that, I was like, that's a long flight. I don't know if she can get back for Sunday. And then somebody, I don't know who on the network said it, but someone on the network was like, time zone changes, she'll be fine. Her concert will end Saturday morning, our time in Las Vegas time. she can take the 15-hour, 12-hour flight back, whatever it is, and be
Across
there
the
for
Pacific.
Saturday night. So,
Okay.
so there you go. So if you don't like Taylor Swift, she'll probably be at the Super Bowl. So
All right.
I'm sorry to let you know, Swiftie haters, she will be there. But I'll enjoy it. I'll enjoy it. Who should I root for? I'm really torn. Kind of want to root for the Chiefs, but I also want to root for
I'm a
the former
Chiefs fan,
Hawks.
but I can't. I like Green Law and I like Brandon Allen,
Do.
so I may kind of go with them.
You're going to flip to the Niners?
I like Kansas City because I like their quarterback and he was a Red Raider, and I kind of like the Red Raiders because I grew up around there. But
Okay.
this Razorback connection trumps that.
Okay, so you're
So they
throwing your
trump
support.
Mahomes.
They trump Mahomes.
So
I love it.
so I may have to become
49ers
yeah,
fan.
I may have to be a 49ers fan, and of course Brandon Allen's not going to play, but
Yeah, well,
he'll be over there. You
he'll
can
be
look
over
at it.
there, What is this, like his third Super Bowl
Yeah, he does all that
appearance?
stuff.
Fourth?
He makes money off of it.
He does. He makes money off of it. So that's good for him. I saw a video that his wife posted of him on the field and everything celebrating with the guys. So
Yeah.
that was exciting. If you're going to go with the 49ers, then should I just go with the Chiefs?
Yeah, you can do that.
All right, we'll go against each other. We'll
Okay.
put some money on it, maybe. I don't know. All right, that's going to do it for this week's Ask Mike. I'll see you next Monday to answer more of your questions.